G'day, I'm Luke Bateman, and this is In the Good Books, the podcast where we dive into the most incredible stories ever told and talk about books which have left lasting impressions on you long after you close the cover. If you're a book nerd, you'll love this podcast. If you've always wanted to get into reading and books, but you've never understood the hype or where to start, you're in the right place. Or if you're simply someone who enjoys a good story, you're welcome too. Let the adventures begin. We're going to kick things off today with an audio from Brianna.
Hi Luke, I am currently reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This one was actually my selection for my book club this month, and I'd heard a lot about this book, so thought it was about time I gave it a go. I've got around 100 pages left, and so far I am loving the fantasy elements as the main character navigates her life after striking a deal with the devil. I'm really keen to see how the story ends.
Okay, I love that suggestion for the book club. I love it. You know you've come to the right place when as soon as you say fantasy, you know I'm a man who's immediately interested in what's about to be said. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue sounds incredibly interesting, and I just love the name Addie LaRue, by the way. Why are fictional names always so much cooler than normal names? I think in the world we just need to start scrapping traditional names and giving everyone cool names, because the world would just be a much better place. Making a deal with the devil is such a cool trope and can go so many ways, and I am also really interested to know how this book ends. You're 100 pages away from the end. I'm 1,000 pages away from the end, but I really want to know what this story is and how that ends, because escaping a deal with the devil it's tough business. It's tough business in anyone's books. That sounds really interesting and really fun. And if you're Brianna, if you're loving it and really interested to know how it finishes with 100 pages to go, that's all the tick of approval I need. A deal with the devil, a fantasy book, and you're still super invested with 100 pages to go. That's 3 ticks for me. And I've heard really good things about V.E. Schwab too. So that is an author who I have not read yet, who I'm going to have to dive into. So today our topic is going to be around smut and what it means to people and what its place is in literature. And I firstly wanted to, firstly introduce, smut and literature as, as I've been told it's called. And those are obviously books that involve spice is the common term. Books that involve spice, they involve, sex and romance and erotica. And my journey in this world has only sort of just begun in and of itself. It's something that I'm very new to as well. So I want to dive into it and talk about what it means to me, and then talk about what it means in the broader literature culture. When I think about smut from a male perspective, it was always something that I was wouldn't say afraid of, but I was just very resistant to jumping into, simply because of the negative connotations that came around. And it was something that I think carried, for men especially, like reading those books carries probably a bit of judgment and a bit of shame. So I think it's really important that we break down those barriers and break down why it is still so important for men to be exposed to those stories and those books, and break down the social narrative that they're for women, and that even the women who read them may be in some way like shamed. It's really, really hard for me to speak on it from a female perspective, because I don't know what that experience is like. But I actually have a good friend of mine who probably many of you will know, Tierney Page, and we'll give her a call now and just get her take on it. I hope she picks up. She's a live wire, so this will be interesting.
What do you want? I'm very busy.
Hello, Dale. Firstly, I'm recording a podcast episode, so you're being recorded. I'm just letting you know that. Make sure. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to get a bit of an expert in on this, and I suppose, I'm talking about smut in this episode, and I talked about smut from like a male perspective, and sort of like, I suppose, the shame and the barriers to entering smut and reading smut for a male. But what do you think? Is there a shame around it for women? And what do you think? Like, what's smut's place in broader literature, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I think there's always been a stigma around it, particularly
Mm.
when women read it, because I mean, everybody has an opinion. And I don't think until you read the genre, until you read romance, you understand that it's a book with spice, not. There's a difference between a book with spice and a spice book. So there's a
Yeah.
difference between smut and that, like, an erotica, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't actually know that. So thank you. That's very, very helpful. But continue.
What were you saying? The barriers.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean, for men, like I was always like, as a male, especially like someone who was in very manly cultures, like I was always very shameful around like diving into that genre. Like that was a book that I would never pick up because I would have been shamed to have read it. Do you think that
Yeah.
like do you think that women would have the same? Like, is there
I
shame?
think to a certain degree, definitely. And I think that we still do cop some flack
Yeah.
for reading the genre, definitely.
Is that
But
do you?
I think it's become so much more accessible, and I think women are becoming more vocal and confident when it comes to talking about it.
Yeah.
So it has, amongst women, I think, become a lot more acceptable because it is such a supportive community. So I think that that's really played a big role too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What place does it have for women, like in literature? Like, how important is it to you?
Well, I mean, to me, I find it very important. I think it's really empowering, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only entertaining. I think that, yes, it has the spice, but it's also like these books and the spice also have very real human emotion and connections. And I think that
Yeah.
people can relate and resonate with that. And I think also because it's so diverse and inclusive. So there's something for everyone. You know, you've got monster,
Yeah.
monster romance,
My
LGBTQIA plus, your favorite.
my favorite, my favorite.
There's dark romance, erotica, contemporary sports, sci-fi,
Yeah.
fantasy, like
Just so many different avenues. Yeah.
so many different subgenres underneath it as
Yeah.
well.
Oh. Well, thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate it. And you look wonderful right now, by the way.
You can't see that.
Okay, all right, all right. Well, thank you very much. Love you. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye. Okay, well there you go. We've got the word from the horse's mouth. Tioni Page, a published author in the romance space, and one of my good friends, and probably someone that you all know. I think that what she said. Actually, it was really funny. I think for me, there was a point where I actually sort of came to the understanding of what it means to women. And there was a video of me on social media, and I was doing a radio interview, and we were kind of in the radio interview, we were kind of like having a laugh about smut. And I would say like taking the piss in a bit of a way, not taking the piss, but just like just finding the humor in it, and we were just having a bit of a laugh around, yeah, just smut in general. And I saw a comment on it actually, and this woman commented, and she said, "Great, another." I can't remember the quote directly, so this is paraphrasing, but basically she said, "Great, more people are shaming women for a place that they find very empowering." And when I read that, I actually sat there and like it really dawned on me in that moment that this genre means so much more than just like I suppose, the spicy side of things to women. Like it is empowerment and it is freedom. And for women who've been so oppressed and suppressed in that area for so long, like this is really such a powerful way to break free and express themselves and just be so open around their sexuality. And that comment for me, like really, really hit me hard because I was like, you know what? I actually am being like, in a way, like I'm continuing the shame around this genre. And it was just such an eye-opening moment for me that it actually means so much and it's so important to so many women, and the shame around it is completely, I would say, misplaced. So that was awesome. And as I said, I can only speak about it from a male perspective. So my experience in it has actually been, I would say, in many ways, quite liberating for myself, because it's funny. Like when I read my A Court of Thorns and Roses was the very, very first smart book I read, and when I started reading it, I expected to get to the sexual scenes and be really cringed or turned off or feel really awkward around it. And I'm not sure whether admitting this is is all that great of me, but like I was quite turned on when I was reading. Like I was like, oh my god, like this actually is good. And yeah, I was what's the word for it? I was quite aroused. I was actually quite aroused, and truly, I think that even men, like in many ways, like if I look at it from like a male perspective, while male sexuality has not been like suppressed in the way that female sexuality has, men and their sexuality has always been quite a, like I would say, a brash sort of sexuality, and not really, I would say, not very like romantic or nuanced. And I think it's really important for men to be able to read these books and actually discover like the romantic and the sensual side of themselves, and the gentle side of themselves, the yearning and and the build up. Like I think as men we get taught like the image of sex that we get shown is just so, yeah, I'd say just so disconnected in many ways, and just a very much a performance and not a connection of two souls. So I think it's really, that's the place that it has for men in literature, is allowing us to, while it allows women to express their sexuality and unshackles the chains they've had so long, I think it allows men to sort of hone in on their sexuality and dive into their sensual side and their soft side and their romantic side, and explore that in a safe place where there's no shame, and you can do it quietly and work out sort of what feels good to you, and what you think that you might enjoy. Because there's definitely been things that I've read in smut books where I'm like, you know what, like with a partner, like that would be something that would be really interesting to sort of try. And so for me, I went into the smut books expecting to enjoy the story and feel weirded out or very cringy about the sex scenes. Whereas I sort of found myself on the opposite side of that, where I was kind of like, oh, these stories are quite basic and these stories aren't really engaging. But I find the sex scenes like really enjoyable, and they make me very aroused. Boys becoming connected to those sexual parts of our being is still so important, and that ties back to being connected to our emotions, because there's no way that you can be connected to your arousal if you're disconnected from your emotions. And once again, this is books connecting you to your own being through stories and through these places. So the power of that is just so important. And as Tiani said on our call, like there's a community of it. Like, and she said she finds such empowerment through that community. And I see it, when I very first jumped on TikTok, that was the very first thing that I saw, was just all of these like smut and romance books, and like women just talking so freely and enthusiastically about all the books that they love, and all the different parts of those books. And while still like, it is humorous in a way. I read many of you may have seen, or many of you may have not seen it, but I read the book Morning Glory Milking Farm, and I went into it expecting to read a book that I wasn't going to enjoy. It was just one of those cases where I was like, someone's told me this plate is hot and not to touch it, so now I have to touch that plate. Just that's just how my mind works. So when I got recommended the book, I was like, I just have to know what this is about, And I finished that book, and I was like, not only was this a great book that had a great social narrative and a real narrative around acceptance and understanding and cohesion, it also had like these really, really good sexual scenes that were, interspecies. But the point of it was not the interspecies side of it. The point of it was acceptance, and I think breaking down the barriers between, identities and genders and races and cultures. And that's just so incredibly important. And the community around that, even when I posted my review of Morning Glory Milking Farm, the community that came to that and commented on that was just so awesome to see. And I can see why so many people find belonging and empowerment in those spaces. And it's just so important. And it's so important for young boys to be exposed to like their sex and sexual sides themselves in this way, because I think in this day and age, boys have been flooded with this very pornographic and disconnected, emotionless, unrealistic image of sex and expectation of sex, and being able to see these stories and see the connection and see the romance build and see those beautiful intricacies of our sexual sides. It's just so important that they see that version, see that image of sex and of affection and of desire, because they aren't getting that online and they aren't getting that in the spaces where they're going to. It plays such a key and crucial role in the development of that part of themselves too. Okay, now that we've covered what smut means in literature, broader culture, and how important it is to, both genders, I want to give you some recommendations. Now, as I've said, my smut journey has only just begun, but these are the books that I have enjoyed so far. And the first one is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Now, if you are someone who reads books, I would say that you are probably well aware of this series, ACOTAR. It was my very first smut book. I really enjoyed it. As I said, I didn't think that the storyline was that great, but I did really, really enjoy the smut scenes, and it was my journey into that genre. And I also, when I was talking about it online, I had so many women commenting saying that ACOTAR was the book that got them back into reading, and I was just so excited by that. Like, this book means so much more to people, and it created a whole new generation of readers, which I absolutely love. So that's my very first recommendation. My second recommendation is The Witch Collector by Teresa Weeks. Now, this was a story that I actually really enjoyed. It had a really cool magic system in it, and the storyline was very engaging from start to finish. And I would say that the romance and the smut side of it was a slower build, and it was a real yearning in this book. So if you are someone who's looking for not only a good story and a good magic system, but a lot of yearning, this is the perfect book for you. And the book that I have talked about already, one of my favorite books of all time, simply because of my expectation going into it of thinking, oh, this is just going to be silly. And I was completely blown away by how much I enjoyed it and how much I got out of it. This was the very first monster smut book that I read, and I just thought it was so awesome. And then when I was talking to more people about this book, so many people were saying to me, they're saying that the monster smut genre is actually really wholesome. And that's just something that you won't believe it until you do it. And you have to dive into it to experience it. And I wholeheartedly agree. This book was so wholesome. It had such a cool understory about capitalism and sort of a really unique look on modern day society and what takes place there. But the romance, believe me when I say this, the romance story in this book was phenomenal, 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. It was such a cute and wholesome little build up, and it wasn't rash or it wasn't crude. It was actually really, really beautiful, this story. So those are my 3 smut recommendations for you all. Great place to start, or if you're already a smut lover, please go and read those, because I genuinely really enjoyed them. Okay, as you know, I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing these stories. Make sure you keep sending in your voice messages to goodbooks@9.com.au for us to share and talk about on this podcast. It's honestly, it's just one of my favorite things to do, is just hear these awesome stories about books from all of you. So for any more details on that, you can check out the podcast notes below. I can't thank you enough for joining me on this episode of In the Good Books. I am so overjoyed to be able to talk about magic and words with more and more people. I'd be genuinely grateful if you'd subscribe to In the Good Books by hitting the follow button in your podcast app. I look forward to our next chapter.